Hello, everyone. Welcome back to FFM Sports. I am Ethan Fager, and today I am going to be giving you my March Madness official bracket prediction. It's just me today, JR. Unfortunately, couldn't be here, so we're just going to go through my bracket, and we're going to see. I've got some tips and tricks, some upsets maybe that we can take a look at. And also another note: this is also going to be on YouTube and podcast, so we decided to put this on YouTube so you can see kind of what's going on as I'm going through. I can show you some stats and all that stuff, but it's also in the podcast form just in case you just want to listen to what's going on. So without further ado, let's get started. And then this is on the ESPN Men's Tournament Challenge, so I can just click through, and then we're going to eventually get our my eventual champion, which will be revealed coming up. All righty, let's start off in the South. And for the 116 matchup, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, they had a good game last night, but I'm going to be taking, of course, Alabama. There's should be no really question about that there. If Corpus Christi wins this game, this is one of the biggest upsets of all time. All right, another interesting one: Maryland versus West Virginia. JR's current school. And you know what? Let's take a look at the stats here. West Virginia obviously in the Big 12, and obviously these teams are both very, very even. In terms of opponents points per game, West Virginia's allowing a lot more, but they're in the Big 12, which I think is a tougher conference than the Big 10, in my opinion. Maryland's got a better record for its top 25 and a higher BPI rank, as well as a better conference ranking, but they've scored less points per game. And we take a look at notable results. Maryland's had some good wins, some bad losses. Same goes for West Virginia. But for this matchup, I'm going to be taking the Mountaineers because a little bit JR's West Virginia, but I also think West Virginia's been coming on hot as of late. They've had some good games, and I think they can beat Maryland here. So I'm going to go with that one. All right. 12-5. These are normally the ones where you would consider an upset possibility. San Diego State versus Charleston. However, I'm not picking the upset here. I'm going to be taking San Diego State. If we're looking at the stats here, BPI ranks a huge one here. San Diego State's ranked 24th. They only have Charleston ranked 63rd. And conference schedules are both pretty even. And the Charleston's in with Delaware's conference, the Colonial Athletic. So yeah, I'm just going to take San Diego State here. I don't see an upset. I know a lot of people are considering this one an upset. I'm personally not in that camp. I think San Diego State, I think this would be a close game, but and if you look at the notable results too, San Diego State's beaten Utah State 3 times, who's a tournament bound team. Split the series with Nevada, who's a tournament bound team. Split the series with Boise State, as a tournament bound team. And Charleston, they didn't beat a tournament team at all. They lost to 16 by North Carolina, beat Virginia Tech by 2, but Virginia Tech's not in it. So that's why I'm going to be taking the San Diego State, the Aztecs. All right, Virginia and Furman. This is my first upset of the tournament. Virginia, they've been having a tough go with things the past couple games. They lost to Duke in the AC championship. They haven't looked like Virginia. I think a lot of people are liking Virginia. I'm nowhere near that camp. I think this is a huge upset opportunity. I actually have this in my bracket with Furman. I think the Paladins, something like that, winning that one. All right, another very interesting game, which people have been calling for an upset. Creighton versus NC State. This is a very interesting game. However, I'm going to be taking Creighton. They have the chance to be able to go a long way in this tournament. So that's why I'm going to pick Creighton. All right, Baylor, UC, Santa Barbara. Not really too much of a debate for me here. I'm going to be going with the Baylor Bears. And then Missouri, Utah State. This is an interesting one. I got an upset here too. If you look at the BPI rank, 42nd for Utah State, 59th for Missouri. And, obviously Missouri's in the SEC. They couldn't beat Alabama. But obviously, apart from San Diego State, Utah State has a tremendous offense. They can just keep that offense rolling. They can easily pick this one up. So that's why I'm going to be taking Utah State in that one. And then Arizona Princeton, no 2-15 upset here. I got the Arizona Wildcats winning. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to run through and then we'll pick the winner of each bracket, and then we'll go for the Final Four then once that's happened. All right, Alabama and West Virginia. I'd love to pick West Virginia here for JR, but I just can't. Alabama, so much squad depth. Obviously, number one overall seed in the tournament. You got to go Alabama. Now, could there be a Cinderella story forming here with Furman versus San Diego State? And I say yes. I think Furman takes down the Aztecs and moves into the Sweet 16. I don't know. Furman just I've got really good. I think San Diego State and Virginia are very questionable 4 and 5 seeds. I think San Diego State definitely gets by. We'll get by Charleston, but I don't see them getting by Furman. I just don't think they're that good of a team, to be honest. So I'm going to be taking Furman in that one to go to the Sweet 16. All right, round of 32, Creighton versus Baylor. I love Creighton. They're a solid team, but the guard play of Baylor has just been superb when everyone's healthy. And I think if they can keep everyone healthy, they are going to be tough to beat. So I'm going to be taking Baylor in this one. And then Utah State, Arizona. I love Utah State's offense, but with that being said, I think Arizona is one of the best teams in the country. Even though they're only a 2 seed, they definitely could be a 1 seed in this tournament for sure. So that's why I'm going to be taking Arizona in this one. All right, Sweet 16, Alabama versus Furman. I think this is where the Cinderella story ends. Alabama's just too good. And I think Alabama will just overpower Furman. It's a good run for Furman, but I think it ends there. And then Baylor versus Arizona. If this game would happen, this would be a great game. 2 of the top teams in the country, both probably deserving maybe a higher seed if some of the teams weren't in this thing. So for that reason, this is a close game. I mean, just look at this. 10th BPI rank, 12th BPI rank for Arizona and Baylor respectively. And just look how even it is. Look how even this is. In terms of points per game, conference record. Obviously, Arizona's advanced 6-1 versus top 25 compared to Baylor's 5-5, and allowing around the same amount of points per game. But with that being said, I'm going to be taking Arizona. I just think they're going to have the upper. They're going to just slightly edge Baylor in this one. And then another great matchup in the Elite Eight to round out the South to determine the South champion. I think Alabama's going to win this one. I don't really. I mean, I Arizona could win, but I'm sticking with Alabama. I think they're gonna roll through Arizona there. All right, so that is the South bracket. I have Alabama winning. Probably not a shock to most people, but yeah, that's who I got winning the South bracket. All right, let's move on to the Midwest. And Houston versus North Kentucky. I got Houston here just for obvious reasons. Houston's the number 1 overall seed. I don't really see them losing. Iowa versus Auburn. This is another interesting matchup here. And a very, very even matchup, I might add. With that being said, I think Iowa's offense will get them to the finish line here over Auburn. So I'm going to be taking Iowa in this one. All right, another 5v12 matchup, Miami versus Drake. I mean, I have some pretty good experience with Miami. Duke played them twice this year. I'll split the series. Oh no, we beat them twice. Never mind, excuse me. Miami's a solid team. They're a good team. And I know a lot of people are also saying Drake could maybe pull off this upset here. Again, I'm not in that camp. I got Miami winning this one. Indiana versus Kent State. We'll continue forward, but man, I like Indiana. I like Trace Jackson Davis, that he's a great player, amazing player. I got Indiana over Kent State in this one. Iowa State versus Pitt, who just won last night in a really thrilling game. I don't think it continues for Pitt though. Iowa State, I like the Big 12 teams because they played each other, so they have a lot of experience of playing those high, tough games. So that's why I'm going to take Iowa State here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Iowa State here. Xavier versus Kennesaw State. Not really a shock here. I'm going to take Xavier. Excuse me. Penn State versus Texas A&M. I got an upset alert here too. I think Penn State, they barely almost beat Purdue in the Big Ten championship. Texas A&M got blown out in the SEC championship to Alabama. Penn State's on a super hot streak right now. So I'm going to be taking the Penn State Nittany Lions to move on here over A&M. And then Texas Colgate, not really much of a shock here. I'm going to be taking Texas. All right, moving on to the round of 32. Houston versus Iowa. I love Iowa's offense. I think Houston's just too much overpowering to get through, and then they'll get by Iowa. Miami versus Indiana. Very good game if this does happen. But with that being said, I think Trace Jackson Davis is a star. I think he'll be able to play well enough to beat Miami. So I got Indiana winning that one. Iowa State versus Xavier. I mean, I don't know. I could be seeing Xavier as a potential upset here, and I'm actually going to take Iowa State. I just think the Big 12 teams, as I said before, have so much experience playing these high stake games that a lot of them are going to be tough to beat, especially in the earlier rounds. So that's why I'm going to take Iowa State over Xavier. And then Penn State and Texas, I'd love to pick Penn State here. You know, I know a lot of people that go to Penn State. It would be a great Cinderella run, obviously, but I don't see them beating Texas, unfortunately. All right, Houston versus Indiana. I'm going to be taking the upset here. As I said in recent podcasts, I'm not as like high on Houston as everyone is. I just think, playing in the American, you have less opportunity to show off your skills, maybe a little bit of an easier schedule. Compared to Indiana and the Big Ten conference, a bunch of teams in the Big Ten here. So that's why I'm going to be taking Indiana. And finally, Iowa State and Texas, a Big 12 matchup. This would be a great matchup to see. And I just think Texas edges this one out. All right. For my Elite Eight matchup, Indiana and Texas. Boy, well, what a game that would be. With that being said, I think, again, Trace Jackson Davis, I'm really putting a lot on Trace Jackson Davis here. I really need him to play well here. So that's why I'm going to be taking the Indiana Hoosiers, finally getting back into their former glory and going to the Final Four. So there, I actually have them winning the Midwest here. So I got them winning the Midwest and then moving on to the Final Four. All righty, moving on to the East. All right, Purdue versus the winner of Texas Southern Fairleigh Dickinson, which is tonight. I don't really see Purdue losing. Zach Edey, a monster. I got Purdue here. Memphis versus FAU. This is another very interesting matchup. But based on what I just saw in the American Championship, Sunday or Saturday, I got Memphis here. They look so good against Houston. I know Houston was down a couple players, but Memphis just looked really good in that one. All right, you know what time it is. It's Duke basketball time, ladies and gentlemen. And they're playing Oral Roberts. You know, if you remember, Oral Roberts was the darling of 2020, the darling of the COVID year. Max Amos is back and still on that team. However, I think Duke's one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Duke fan. It's a lot of people are saying this. They've won 9 straight. They just won the ACC championship. A lot of people are calling for the upset here. I don't see it. I got Duke over Oral Roberts. Tennessee versus Louisiana. I mean, I'm not too fond of Tennessee, but I'm going to pick them here. Kentucky versus Providence. I'm going to take Kentucky. I would love to pick Providence here, but, Kentucky, if this was a couple weeks ago, I'd probably be picking Providence right now. If the seeding would probably be a lot different for Kentucky too. But Kentucky just come on strong as of late, and I got Kentucky here. All right, Kansas State versus Montana State. Montana State, there's been a couple rumblings about an upset here. I don't really see it. Again, Big 12 teams who just played really well, and I got Kansas State. Michigan State versus USC. USC had a good year, 10 seed out of the Pac-12, had a good year, but Michigan State, Big 10. If we look at the stats here, BPI ranked 37th compared to 54th for USC. Had a tough loss. Michigan State had a tough loss to Gonzaga. They beat Kentucky. They've beaten Penn State. They've beaten some strong tournament teams. And, USC, the only tournament team they've really beaten is Arizona State. And they did beat UCLA, but I'm going to be taking the Spartans for JR here. All right, Marquette versus Vermont. This is probably what people say is possibly could be the most likely 215 upset out there. However, I'm not seeing it. I'm not really a big guy on picking upsets. And every time I get proven wrong, hopefully this year it doesn't happen. But this year I'm taking Marquette. All right, Purdue and Memphis. Again, I love Memphis. I loved how they played in the American Championship. But with that being said, again, Zach Edey, he's going to be too overpowering. I got Purdue moving on to the Sweet 16. Duke, Tennessee, a very good matchup. And a matchup, I think Duke's going to ride this hot streak very far. And I don't know. I'm not buying Tennessee right now. With that being said, I'm going to be taking Duke here. Kentucky versus Kansas State. Look, I know I've said a lot about the Big 12 and how they played in big games, but you got to realize here, Kansas State's going up against one of the best coaches of all time in John Calipari. And if anyone knows how to win in March Madness, it's that man. So therefore, I'm going to be taking Kentucky as an upset here over Kansas State. And then Michigan State Marquette. Very interesting matchup. This is one of my toughest ones I had to pick. I went back and forth for ages trying to pick this one, but I think Marquette's slightly going to edge it here. So I'm going to take the Marquette. Well, I'm going to be taking Marquette here. I wouldn't be shocked with the Michigan State upset, however. All right, Purdue versus Duke. Obviously, these two teams saw each other earlier on in the year with Purdue pretty handily beating Duke. However, it is a different Duke team. Derek Lively, we have we'll hopefully have a fully healthy squad. Derek Lively's a lot different than he was when they last played Purdue. We got Dariq Whitehead. I think Duke upsets Purdue here, riding that hot heat wave, and moving on to the Elite Eight. And then Kentucky versus Marquette. I think Marquette had a good run, obviously, to the Sweet 16, but I think this is where they end. Again, John Calipari, one of the best coaches. I got them beating Marquette. And then, if you're a college basketball fan, you'll remember the history between these two teams. There's a lot of history between these two teams. And maybe it's a little biased here. I think this would be a great game, a really close game. But I think Derek Lively would do a good job of containing Oscar Tshiebwe. And then I think the guard play would just outpower the Kentucky guard play. So therefore, I'm going to be taking Duke here. So I got Duke winning the Elite Eight and Alabama. I got Duke winning the Elite Eight and playing Alabama in the Final Four. All right, then the final side of the bracket, we're going to go to the West. Kansas versus Howard. I don't really see an upset here. I'm going to be taking Kansas. No explanation needed. Arkansas versus Illinois. Very interesting matchup. However, I think Arkansas is one of those teams that has had ups and downs, and when they're up, they've proven to be one of the best teams in the country. I think they go on up here, and I think they can take out Illinois. St. Mary's versus VCU. Ooh, another interesting matchup here. Another 12 versus 5 matchup. I don't have any 12s upsetting 5s, and that continues. Now, I think St. Mary's overpowers VCU. UConn versus Iona. Rick Pitino getting his team into the tournament as a 13 seed. However, I don't think they're going to do anything. So I got UConn beating Iona. TCU versus the winner of Arizona State and Nevada. Look, I like TCU. I think they're going to go pretty far in this tournament. And I think regardless of who that winner is, I got TCU winning this one. Gonzaga versus Grand Canyon. Gonzaga not having the greatest of years as to their standards. With that being said, however, I think they do get by Grand Canyon. Northwestern versus Boise State, another very interesting matchup. BPI rank for Northwestern's 41, Boise State's 47. Very, very even, but I think just based on the pedigree, Big Ten Conference, I'm going to take Northwestern here. Then UCLA versus UNC Asheville. I have UCLA winning this one. Again, UCLA, like Arizona, one of the best teams in the country, hands down. All right, Kansas versus Arkansas. This would be a great matchup, especially if Arkansas is playing at its best. But with that being said, I think so many stars on Kansas, Jalen Wilson, all those guys. So I got Kansas winning that one. St. Mary's versus UConn. I'm going to be taking St. Mary's here. St. Mary's had a really good year this year. They beat Gonzaga. They beat San Diego State. They've beaten Oral Roberts. They almost beat Houston. UConn did beat Alabama and Marquette. But I'm going to be taking St. Mary's here. TCU versus Gonzaga, upset alert here. I think Gonzaga, I think Gonzaga's are more of, I'm not going to say frauds, but I think they're definitely susceptible to an upset. And TCU, again, you can see I'm liking the Big 12 teams. And with that being said, I'm going to be taking TCU here, upsetting Gonzaga. UCLA Northwestern, UCLA's got so much talent on that team. No way I see Northwestern beating UCLA if it gets to that point. Kansas St. Mary's, I'm actually predicting this to be more of a blowout game. I think Kansas take care of the St. Mary's here. And then TCU, UCLA, I'd love to pick TCU here, move them forward, but I can't. UCLA's got such a strong team. I'm going with UCLA. All right, then finally for the West, the Elite Eight, I'm going to be taking an upset. Well, maybe not an upset, but I'm going to be taking UCLA here. I just think I got a good feeling that UCLA, if this matchup were to happen, UCLA would beat Kansas just on. They've got a lot more experience playing in the tournament. I think they would take care of them here. All righty. So this is how my Final Four is shaping out. Alabama and Duke on one side, Indiana and UCLA on the other side. Let's start off with Alabama Duke. As much as I would love to pick Duke here to move on to the championship game, I think they have another Final Four ending season, and I think Alabama's able to take care of them. And then Indiana UCLA, very interesting game, but I think UCLA takes care of this one. Finally, the national championship, Alabama versus UCLA. And I'm going to be taking the Alabama Crimson Tide. Brandon Miller, one of the best players in the country, and he's a freshman. They've got such a good team. I just got them beating UCLA. So, and I'll pick the final score. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to go with 80 to 75. I got Alabama beating UCLA. Obviously a close game there. So yeah, this is how my bracket looked. Obviously, it's probably not gonna be a perfect bracket because it's literally impossible to get a perfect bracket. But hopefully I can help you if you have major bracket predictions yet. Hopefully I can help you make some predictions here to better pick your brackets, and hopefully if not me, one of you guys can get a perfect bracket, win that Warren Buffett $1 billion bracket challenge. So yeah, this was my bracket, and thank you for watching. And for FFM Sports, I'm Ethan Fager, and we are signing off.